We have reached a dangerous new phase in the mysterious disappearance of Savannah Guthrie's mother, 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie, in the early morning hours of February 1, 2026. Living alone in her Tucson home in the Catalina Foothills area, Nancy was the last person anyone expected to be at the center of a criminal investigation. The narrative has shifted from a random act to something much more calculated. Sheriff Chris Nanos issued a warning that should send a chill down the spine of every resident. He said,
"We believe we know why he did this, and we believe that it was targeted."
Why would someone target an 84-year-old grandmother? The police say they are intentionally withholding clues. It suggests the motive is something sensitive, perhaps a connection to Today co-anchor Savannah Guthrie. Chris Nanos warned the community that this suspect could strike again.
Criminal minds are criminal minds.
Nanos warned residents not to relax, saying it would be silly to tell people they aren't at risk, because you could be his target. What data led the sheriff to this conclusion? The Catalina foothills aren't just suburbs. They are rugged, high-income, and geographically isolated. To target someone here requires intimate knowledge of the winding roads and the specific blind spots of desert properties. This implies the suspect didn't just find Nancy, he studied her. The intruder's methods were a strange mix of the professional and the desperate. A man, wearing a black Ozark Trail hiker pack from Walmart, first tried to cover the doorbell camera lens with a glove and then resorted to stuffing plants in front of the camera to block its view, before finally manually disconnecting it. The guy knew exactly where the camera was. He had a gun and covered his face. This wasn't a crime of opportunity. He was carefully prepared and ready for confrontation. An expert says professional criminal groups or street-level offenders don't usually wear holsters, and most definitely not a belt-mounted holster. This isn't the signature of a smash and grab. This might suggest a level of tactical training. The most chilling part of the Guthrie case isn't just what the cameras saw, it's what they didn't see. Investigators have been obsessing over a blackout window between 1:47 a.m. and 2:28 a.m. on February 1st. We now know that the FBI has been questioning neighbors about a localized internet outage that occurred at that exact time. If a Wi-Fi jammer was used, a device that floods the local frequency with noise, rendering wireless security cameras useless, it would have knocked out every camera. But in this case, only the cameras facing Nancy's property seem to have glitched or gone unavailable. Also, if they had a jammer, it didn't make sense to stuff bushes in front of a camera or disconnect it. The perpetrators, presumably two individuals, might have tampered with a nearby electrical box. Nancy didn't show up for church the next day, February 1st, and a missing person report was filed around noon. Investigators quickly treated it as a possible kidnapping after finding drops of blood on the front porch and signs of forced entry or a struggle inside the home. Nancy has mobility limitations and can't walk far by herself. The situation is especially urgent because she depends on daily medication. Nancy relies on a pacemaker that syncs to a base station in her home. Forensic digital analysts confirmed that the device disconnected from its app at exactly 2:28 a.m. It tells us that most probably no jammer was used. Bluetooth and Wi-Fi use the same frequency, so if a jammer was used, her pacemaker would have disconnected earlier. The FBI successfully recovered thumbnail images from 3 distinct motion-activated cameras on the property, cameras focused on Nancy's pool, backyard, and side yard. While the video files themselves were mysteriously missing, these low-resolution thumbnails show people in the backyard and side yard in the days leading up to the event. The abductor knew where the cameras were because he had been standing in front of them days earlier. This confirms the sheriff's targeted theory. This suspect didn't just stumble upon Nancy's house, he was casing it. Sheriff Nanos has now officially cleared the Guthrie family, including all siblings and spouses, as well as the initial suspect, Tommaso Cioni, the son-in-law who was the last person to see Nancy alive when he dropped her off at 9:50 p.m. Savannah Guthrie is reportedly livid over these allegations that her brother-in-law could be the main suspect. Former CIA operative, FBI special agent, and missing person specialist, Tracy Walder explained how investigators could confidently clear the suspects. They must have checked their alibis, looked at their cell phone data to see if it matched their stories, and used license plate scanners to see if they were driving and were caught on cameras. They also likely passed polygraph tests. A former FBI agent, Maureen O'Connell, said Nancy was likely carried out of her home, possibly by 2 abductors, pointing to the blood droplets, the lack of a clear trail, and the absence of footprints. O'Connell doesn't know whether Nancy was alive or dead when she was taken from the home. However, in her view, the signs could indicate Nancy was likely alive, possibly unconscious, when she left. New aerial photos show how vast the desert is around Nancy Guthrie's secluded home. Annie Guthrie shared a map, noting that the route out of the neighborhood is extremely isolated, with few lights and widely spaced homes, which could make it easier to leave the area unnoticed. One specialist suggested that the surrounding terrain could be a reason the abductors may never be caught. A border agent with years of experience tracking people in Tucson's rugged terrain and working search and rescue missions said the area's proximity to the Mexican border could give a suspect a fast escape route by heading south if they got spooked. Nancy Guthrie's neighbor said she saw a strange man with his baseball hat pulled low, looking around weeks before the disappearance. She said he just didn't fit in. He also took a long look at Nancy's home. Laura, one of Nancy Guthrie's neighbors, said that investigators are now focusing on a different date in neighbors' video footage. They're interested in January 11th and January 24th. She also pointed to a detail about Nancy's Catalina Foothills home. Nancy had a security gate on her front door, and when it's locked, it's extremely difficult to get through. Because of that, Laura said she doesn't believe the masked man seen on the FBI-released footage was trying to enter through the front door. Instead, she said she believes entry may have been made another way, and she thinks there were two people involved rather than a single offender. She added that with a locked security gate like that, breaking in through the front wouldn't make sense, and she thinks the man at the door may have been waiting for his accomplice to come out. Earlier, the footage from January 24th drew little attention because the person appeared to be black, but given how often suspects use masks and other coverings, some say it may be worth taking another look. Ring posts from neighbors described the same man around 4 a.m. on January 24th who was peering into windows and trying to open doors at nearby homes. Nancy Guthrie's neighbor Laura said there was a rental nearby that she found suspicious because the occupants moved out within days of Nancy's disappearance. In a high-income, isolated area like the Foothills, a rental can serve as the perfect base of operations, a place to watch the target without drawing the suspicion of a long-term resident. FBI agents are also asking about workers and contractors who've been on construction sites in the neighborhood. Contractors can read a home's layout quickly. They can tell where the bathrooms are by looking at the plumbing, and then guess where the bedroom might be since it's often near the bathroom. So if they enter a house, they may be able to predict where someone is sleeping and avoid the doors nearest to that room to make as little noise as possible. The FBI is looking at residents similar to Nancy, elderly women living on their own. A new detail has emerged about the night before Nancy went missing. On January 31st, when she went to her daughter Annie Guthrie's home for dinner, she took an Uber. Investigators had a long conversation with her driver and reviewed his in-car camera footage closely. The Guthrie family is still offering a $1 million reward for information that leads to Nancy's recovery, and the FBI is offering a separate $100,000 reward. If you have any information, please call the FBI or the Pima County Sheriff's Department. Chris Nanos said, "We're asking the community's help. This community has always stepped up to help us solve some pretty tough crimes. I'm looking for that again." What's the most important clue you think people are overlooking? Share your thoughts in the comments.